Greetings again, everybody. Welcome back to Dark Souls. Last time we finally acquired the Lord Vessel, which means that we can now warp between some key bonfires. However, we're not gonna make use of that ability in this video. Instead, we'll be wandering around Annex for just a little while longer. First though, here's something I forgot last time. It's a pretty good set of armor. Wretch, huh? Yeah, let's vote that up. It is, of course, Lautric's armor, and we only get it if we kill him. And now we could also use the elevator to get back down. But in my opinion, just jumping down there is much more fun. We take damage, but we have Estus. As you saw at the very beginning of this video, we will be using the Falchion this time, or rather curved blades, because I don't like the Falchion very much. In fact, I don't like curved blades in general, so I will want to use a very special one at the least. And what better way to show off creating weapons from boss souls, huh? We will be creating Quelaag's Fury Sword, and to do that we need a +10 version of certain weapon type, in this case curved blades. So, we created it, let's find a good spot to use it. So, we didn't go down these stairs yet, so let's do just that. We will most likely find something new, hopefully something worthwhile, and I'm pretty sure there will also be some enemies so we can test our new weapon. I mean, we've seen it previously in a little preview, but now we're actually gonna see it in action. And this appears to be the entrance to the lower part of the cathedral we saw previously, where we dropped down the chandelier, remember? And down here, we have to fight some of those ninjas with our fire sword, which actually makes short work of them. Those guys are called painting guardians, by the way, and, well, we will see why pretty soon actually. In fact, in this very room. These painting guardians, well, they're pretty annoying. They use curved swords as well, although only close up. They can parry with them, and if you're far away they may throw knives. They also just love to dodge a lot, which gets really annoying if you have to take on more than just one of them, because one of them might dodge around while the other one throws knives at you or, well, attacks you from behind. Luckily, they only appear in this very specific room here. I mean, we've seen them before, but that was the upper part of that room. And now we're right at the bottom, and after that, we will never have to deal with them again. For this little session here, we're going to use the Sealer set as our choice of armor. It's a pretty good light set of armor. It's special too though, which means that we need Twinkling Titanite if we were to upgrade it. So far on this playthrough though, I haven't upgraded any armor. But if you're having trouble, I really recommend doing that, because it does help a lot. A quick recap here about this set of armor. We picked it up from a corpse in Blighttown, which most likely was the previous owner, a sealer, who went to Blighttown in an attempt to purify it again. In total there are 3 sealers. So far we've met the one that was dead and we looted the corpse of, and one that was with Lord Track. Then there's another one who's probably still a New Londo, and at some point, I'm pretty sure we will meet them. And here, if we drop the chandelier, we can pick up the Great Magic Weapon, which is like Magic Weapon, but better. It only has 3 uses instead of 5, but the extra damage you do makes up for that. And in this little corner here, we find Black Iron Tarkus' entire gear. Armor, sword, and shield. Now I don't know exactly how he died, but the implication is that he made it through Sen's Fortress somehow and ended up dying here. And this is the painting that the Painting Guardians have been guarding. And I know that art is best appreciated from a little bit of a distance, but I'm going to give it a closer look anyway. that seems rather odd, I have to say. And it only happens if we have the peculiar doll with us, which we found in the Undead Asylum. And that's why we got it. To access this optional area here, which probably would be DLC in most other games. But I'm glad it's not in this one, and I love it for that. So, the painted world of Ariamis appears to be a rather grim painting. If those scored corpses we can see here are any indication. Since this area has a rather bleak feel to it, darker than most of the rest of the game anyway, it reminds me of Demon Souls a lot, which is the spiritual predecessor of Dark Souls. The games are actually very similar. The main difference, in my opinion at least, is that in Demon Souls the emphasis is more on the dark and dense atmosphere, while here in Dark Souls it's more on the setting and the lore. But let's not talk about the wrong game here. Because right now we're playing Dark Souls. And rather soon we will see a very good reason why I even brought Quelaag's Fury Sword. Or rather a fire enchanted weapon. Because those guys, even though they throw fire at us, well, I wouldn't say they're exactly weak to fire, but if we kill them with fire, well, something special happens. We won't be able to see it because I'm not going to kill them without fire, but if we would kill them without fire, they would spew toxin at us with their dying breath. And I think you can understand that this is not something that I would like to happen. Even though the painted world is rather small, there's a lot of little side paths, nooks and crannies to investigate. So if you like to explore, this is the area for you. I like it a lot. You might think that this area is completely self-contained and not at all connected to the main game. But what we find in here actually also contributes to the main body of lore outside this painting. But more on that as we uncover the info. For now, you see the glowy over there hanging from the balcony? It's connected via a rope and we can shoot it down. You actually have to do it to pick it up, and I forgot another one just outside the walls. But I'll do that later. For now, you might be wondering what those winged creatures are. And of course, going up here will trigger some of them to fly down. So let's greet those harpies with our fire sword. They have a nasty grab that will most likely kill us in one hit at this stage. And I hope I won't be showing that off. But it's easy to dodge anyway. If they fly up and do a little swoop, they will try to land on you and do it. Like so. Couldn't probably see it here, but that's how they do it. Other than that, they're not too difficult. The main difficulty in fighting them comes from the fact that there's almost always more than one of them at the same time, and that they try to ambush you. While this area is pretty small, there's a lot to see here. There are, I think, 4 sub-areas. The walls we are on right now, the courtyard down below, and the annex opposite of us. Then there's also the underground. And yeah, I forgot something. We could have dropped down from up there, and we can't jump over there. Except maybe with the fast roll, but we are in the medium roll category, so we can't. So yeah, gonna have to go back up. But first, kill those rats. I never actually tried to find it out, but I think they inflict toxic. They do seem rather tame compared to the other rats we found in the sewers. But now, back to the roof. And down here, so we can get the dried finger, which is an item you can only hold one of at any time, but you can use it as often as you want. It basically marks you for invasions. If you use it, there will be a much higher chance that you get invaded. Normally, I would advise against rushing into a place like this, but if you're not using a bow, which I could have done but for some reason I decided not to, it's the only way to take out that guy, which would otherwise shoot arrows at you while you try to lure out people on the bridge here. So yeah, my usual approach is to just run in, kill that one archer guy, and then run back out, so I can lure those guys onto the bridge, where I can take them out easily. Of course, if you want to, you could also take out that archer with a ranged attack from here, but I usually don't, for some reason. And that's probably the hardest spot of this area. Well, except for another one that'll come up later. But you will probably be able to tell when that is. So those guys we just killed quite a few of, they may or may not be in some way related to the Chaos Servant Covenant, which is the covenant of Quelaag's sister. Main reason for me thinking this is that, well, those egg carriers that we've seen pretty close to the bonfire, if you aggro them, they can also infest you with a parasite. And if you wait for long enough, an egg will grow on your head. It can actually evolve to some degree. But yeah, I think that those, I'll just call it eggs, are actually eggs that grew on their heads and went bad, which is why they spew poison if you kill it without fire. And they're also pyromancers, and down there is fire, so that makes sense too. But I'm just spitballing here. I may be completely wrong. I probably missed something glaringly obvious. So, after my crazy conspiracy theories here, I will just go on and say that most people, myself included, agree that this area is linked to the black-haired goddess Velka, which is a goddess of sin. Now, we haven't come across any solid clues yet, but we will later. It'll be pretty obvious, you will probably be able to tell it's that obvious. But we've already come across some more subtle clues that will only make sense in context. So after a bunch of toxic rats, let's check out this chest here, because it contains a rather nice set of armor. The Painting Guardian set. I mean, you know how it looks already. You've seen the Painting Guardians. Now here, let's actually get the item I forgot to pick up earlier because I didn't look at it. Okay, so it's an egg vermifuge. I mentioned earlier that you can be infested with a parasite that grows an egg on your head eventually. Well, if you use the egg vermifuge, you can get rid of that egg. There's a good reason to get rid of the egg, aside from the aesthetic one. But I don't want to get too in-depth yet. We'll do that once we get to it. We're not actually going to go up that tower just yet. The only reason I briefly went in there was to aggro that harpy here. The problem with those harpies is, or with that particular one at least, is that there's a good chance if you just walk outside here, you'll aggro her and she will attack you from behind. And that's not really something you want to happen. So this tower is kind of the central point of this area. At its bottom floor, which is where we're headed now, is a little path to the courtyard. And inside the courtyard in turn, we will find a shortcut to the bonfire. So before we do anything else, we should probably check that out, unless we want to walk all the way here again in case we die. Those enemies we see around that statue there are an homage to the first boss of Demon Souls, the Phalanx. Now, I am not fighting them here, but if you want to, you should use fire, preferably with AoE damage, or attack them from behind. They are a decent source of souls if you have a means of dispatching them quickly. But for now, I will just shoot down that one corpse I forgot to shoot down earlier, so I can pick up the goodie it holds. Nothing special. But at least now we have a quick way back to the bonfire. Now before we do anything else, we should go to the right here, because there's a small area with a lot of goodies in it. And there is one thing I noticed while editing with my headphones on. There's some really nice, quiet, well, ambient music going on. So I will amp up the game volume for a while and just shut up. I hope you enjoy. So an invasion. Xanthus King Jeremiah. Like all NPC invasions, he only spawns as long as you haven't defeated the boss yet. He is quite the fierce opponent, even though it doesn't look like it right now, because he's only using a shitty whip. Now he's talking business. He's using endgame level pyromancies. And I figure I might as well switch my weapon, because I think he is resistant to fire. That didn't hit, buddy. Well, that did. Can be hard to hit him at times. And he also likes to spam his firestorm. But once you get really close to him, it's pretty easy to actually hit him. Unfortunately, it seems that the katana here doesn't do much damage either. So I should probably switch again. Going to the menu in the middle of a battle is pro strat, by the way. Yeah, why not use the really overpowered sword? That should do the job. It sure does. So, with him killed, we now, well, we got something. And we will also be able to pick up his armor later on. Just another whip. Yeah, this notched whip here, it's a little stronger than the other one and it inflicts bleeding. But it's still a very weak weapon and I wouldn't recommend using it. But yeah, we're now free to leave this place and can actually go explore the rest of this area. First, that glowy over there seems interesting. This is actually the corpse we shot down earlier, and like the other corpse we shot down, it also holds 1 humanity. And hey, up here on the wall is another ring of sacrifice. Not like we need it, but oh well. Yeah, sure, why not? There's another way down here, and I usually approach it from the other side. So this should be interesting. I'll probably get lost. What we just saw zooming past here is everyone's most beloved enemy, the bone wheel skeleton. There are several ways to deal with them, and all of them involve not getting hit. You can either dodge, which is what I did, or you can block, but in that case you should use a high stability shield. Otherwise your guard will be broken quickly. Or you could also use a heavy set of armor, or combine several of those, if you wish. Because, well, if a bone wheel skeleton hits you, it will hit you over and over and over until you are dead. So, you don't want to get hit, really. The bone wheel skeletons have a rare chance of dropping a certain shield called the bone wheel shield. Well, I call it a shield and it is a shield, but it's actually more useful as a weapon if you enchant it with lightning or fire. Now that guy's peculiar here. He doesn't attack. Let's murder him. So he never does anything to you, but he always drops the Pyromancy Fire Surge. Fire Surge basically lets you breathe fire. It does a lot of small fire damage hits as long as you use it, and it's really not that useful against most enemies, but if they are weak against fire, it does a lot of damage. And ouch, you just saw how those bone wheel skeletons hurt. A little while longer, too close to it, and they would have died. Now imagine the joy of being locked in a room with more than just one of those. I'm sure that'll never come up again, at all, ever, especially not twice. So we just picked up the Annex key, which obviously lets us access the Annex. But it appears that I am lost down here for now. So let's speed this up. Kinda embarrassing, really, but I usually approach this from the other side, and I know my way around that area, actually, at least when I go the other way around. But for now, we have found, oh crap, a bone wheel skeleton. 2 bone wheel skeletons. Well, who would have thought? I know I say that a lot, and it's true for every enemy, but for those especially. If you aggro more than one of them at the same time, you're going to have a very hard time. I mean, one of them can already fuck you up, so two of them have to be at least twice as bad. Hey, what's that guy doing down here? That's a phalanx. He's not supposed to be down here. He must have somehow found his way from upstairs, and I'm not quite sure how, because those guys usually have no means of actually coming down here. I don't want to spoil anything, but this year's actually supposed to be the second encounter with the bone wheel skeletons. They are in another area we just haven't visited yet, but you're expected to go there much earlier. Now, if my intuition doesn't betray me, there should be at least one more bone wheel skeleton down here. Maybe two, but not more. And I can't stress this enough, but you should be extra careful around those guys. Especially in the dark. Because there can be really bad spots where they just surround you and hit you from multiple angles, and that's very, very bad. And that should be all of them, hopefully. But yeah, the important part is turning that handle there. This basically unlocked the way to the exit of the area. But since, well, we found the Annex key, we will first want to check out that Annex. And oh, shiny. And oh, bone wheel skeleton. I must have miscounted. I'm never too sure how many of those are down here. But that should definitely be the last one of them. And the glowy there, of course. In case you didn't catch on to that yet. Is supposed to be a trap for people who don't suspect the fucking bone wheels down there. And this ladder here is how I come in here usually. But this time it seems that I'm leaving the area that way. And here we are basically in familiar territory again. Down there is the courtyard, and here's a small little side path. Nothing too interesting here. That one corpse that was hanging near the entrance, we could have also cut that down from here. It would be right there on that rope we just saw. Of course, there's also a little bit of an ambush going on here. Let's get back down to the phalanxes and down to the bonfire so we can replenish our Estus. So the entrance to the Annex is in the building to the right there. It appears to be some kind of chapel from the looks of it. But yeah, the Annex is an optional part of this already optional area, so it's extra optional. But of course it also leads us to some of the more interesting rewards for exploring this part. There's weapons, armor, magic, and even an ember in the Annex. So, well, it's safe to say that there is something for just about every taste there is. Of course, it's not just an open treasure chamber. There are some enemies guarding those treasures as well. For now though, it's just more of those egghead pyromancers here. And since we deal fire damage, they're not much of a problem to us. But if we didn't have fire damage, they would actually be a problem. And hey, Velka's rapier. Let me read out the item description real quick. A symbolic, powerful thrusting sword, used by the Pardoner serving Velka, goddess of sin. It is no mere symbol, to be sure. The Pardoner is an inhuman swordsman, and wields this enchanted blade with special sword technique. So, the rapier belongs to Oswald, and it seems like there's more to Ozzy than meets the eye at first. So he's not just a crazy guy with an unhealthy obsession for sin and a worshipper of the goddess Velka, but apparently actually a official servant. So the game even kind of explains why paying Oswald with souls to absolve sins actually has an effect on the gameplay and isn't just bullshit that does nothing. And I kinda like when games explain things like that in a way that makes sense in the game's universe. Those harpies here may also be related to Velka. If you kill a harpy, there is a certain chance that they will drop a souvenir of reprisal, which is also awarded to you if you join a certain covenant and invade another player's world and manage to kill them. This covenant specializes in hunting down sinners. Now in this game, the leader of the covenant is not Velka, but it might be the case that Velka for some reason abandoned the covenant or was killed and someone else took over, because there's some difference in what they think a sinner is. More on that when we find the covenant though. Ah, the Dark Ember. Most likely also related to Velka. It allows us to create occult weapons. Occult weapons are basically an upgrade to divine weapons. They also do magic damage in addition to physical, and they scale with faith. But the difference is that, well, divine weapons have a holy modifier, which means that they do more damage to enemies like well, hollows and skeletons, while occult weapons have a occult modifier, and that means that they do more damage to gods and servants of gods. Ah, the Vow of Silence. Let me read the description real quick. Secret rite of black-haired witch Velka prevents casting of magic within effect area. Velka, the goddess of sin, is a rogue deity, but she is versed in the arts both new and old, and is considered to have a great range of influence even as gods are concerned. And they just accidentally made those harpies kill themselves. And, mask of more Velka. Velka's everywhere here. So this set is worn by the servants of Velka. As we could see when we met Oswald, who was wearing the same things. And down this bridge, there's something rather peculiar at the end, and something dropped down. Oh, good. Just what I always wanted. A giant zombie dragon. There's nothing wrong with a little mini-boss fight once in a while. This one is actually pretty easy. Weak to fire, of course. Tends to vomit poison, and if he vomits poison, you can get in a free hit or two. And since I do fire damage with pretty much every attack, I should, well, take care of him rather quickly. And behind that wall there, by the way, is a little safe spot. You can't actually get hit by him there. Says he is not too impressive, but don't stay close to his claws for too long, otherwise he'll do this, and that will hurt a lot. Best not find out how much it hurts, because it might even kill me in one hit. I know, doing some great damage with the fire spells I'm using here. So next time I go up to him, I should be able to kill him. Ah, well, maybe not. Maybe next time. But yeah, since dragons are extinct within the lore of this game, this is pretty much one of the very few dragons we will actually see. I couldn't on that one time either, but this time I definitely should be able to just run up to him and hit him with my sword to kill him. Ah, finally. So, that was just the upper body of a dragon. His behind is still over there. First, let's pick up all this stuff. Dragon scale and the blood shield, which is a pretty good shield. It boosts our overall resistance to status ailments. And hey, if you do a jump attack on that, it stands up and does nothing. So you can walk underneath it and jump down. This is one way of getting to the end without turning that handle down in the underground part. But now, finally, let's check out that tower. There's probably something really good up there. And to make it easier, I'll use Iron Flesh. Iron Flesh basically increases my poise and also the overall defenses, I think. So it's best to use it in areas like this where it would be easy to fall off and you wouldn't be able to dodge anyway. The only thing I'm a little bit afraid of is that they will somehow hit me with their grab, which will still do a ton of damage with me. And of course, Iron Flesh doesn't last that long, so let's recast it so we don't have to worry about falling off. Ah, yes, I always get invaded with the best timing. Let's see how this pans out for me this time. But first, up that tower to the top there's a glowy, and I will want to pick that up. If only I didn't cast Iron Flesh, I'd be up there already. Ah, now. So the invader doesn't seem to know that we're in this tower here. So let's just chill out here. There's another glowy down there. To get it though, we will have to drop down from those stairs. Best from that spot though, because that way you won't fall as far. There he is. Let's bow to him like a gentleman. He returned the favor. Well, this should be a good fight. I mean, he's probably a little bit overpowered because, judging from his equipment, he knows what he's doing. And, yes. So, now there's pretty much only one thing left to do for us, and that is leave the area, because we've done everything else. Now, we will have to get to an exit, because even though we can warp using bonfires, we can't actually warp out of the painted world, so we'll have to, well, find another way. And this is the way. At the end there seems to be a fog gate, so I reckon there's a boss fight up ahead. So while we walk there, let me lose just a few more words regarding Velka. So we don't actually know if she's dead, alive, missing in action, or whatever, because she does not actually appear in the game. All we know about her, we know from flavor texts. Most of them come from this area here. Some of them from Oswald. I think he sells the Talisman of Velka, which is kind of interesting because it allows us to cast miracles, but it scales with intelligence as opposed to faith. But hey, one last obstacle now, and I don't have much more Velka info. So let's kill that one guy and then, well, wrap this up. This Steel Knight here is a little different from the others we've met so far, in that he is using a sword instead of a giant mace. That makes him a lot faster than the others, and I'm glad that this overhead swing just now missed, because, well, the Spider Shield has a very low stability, and if he had hit us with that, it would have gone right through our shield. Overall, I would say that the Sword Knight here is much more difficult to fight than the other one. And oh yes, you saw that overhead swing went right through our shield. And oh yes, he can heal too. Of course, killing it with fire always works. And much like the others, you can farm those for large Titanite, but it's not worth it at all. So now the boss, I will promise you that it's not Velka. Probably. It doesn't even appear to be hostile. That's interesting.
Who art thou? One of us thou art not. If thou hast misstepped into this world, plunge down from the plank and hurry home. If thou seekest I, thine desires shall be requited not.
Hey, that's nice. She'll just let us go. So maybe, maybe we should leave. Ah, the Santa set. The armor our invader was wearing. But I think we should actually fight her.
I expected as much from thee. Why dost thee hurry toward thine death?
As you can see, Priscilla's gimmick is that she cannot be seen. But you can actually tell where she is by looking at the snow for her footprints. And also whenever she stirs up some snow when she attacks. But hey, once we stagger her, she's actually pretty easy to defeat. She's not very aggressive, so you can just wail on her usually. And you can of course cut off her tail, but it's pretty difficult to pull off with well, curved sword. So about cutting off her tail, it's best to, well, use your first hit to attack the tail. Of course, since she is a half dragon, she is also weak to lightning. And after that, it is a matter of, well, getting behind her and actually being able to hit the tail. A weapon that hits directly in front of you does the best job here. And hey, look at that. So Priscilla's dagger is a dragon weapon, which means it requires dragon scales to upgrade. And well, it is also a bleeding weapon. Bleeding is a status effect that builds up slowly like poison and toxin, but instead of damage over time, it does one big chunk of damage at once. So it is best to use the dagger to just wail on opponents until they bleed. Like so. Now, if we were to fuse Priscilla's soul with a +10 halberd or even a +10 whip type weapon, we would get this here, the Life Hunt Scythe. Its description states that even the gods feared the Life Hunt ability of the weapon. And Life Hunt ability is basically nothing but an intense bleeding effect. Along with Priscilla's dagger, it has the highest bleeding modifier of 500. Although in this case, the bleeding damage is a little more significant, as you will hopefully see pretty soon. It sometimes takes a while to build up. But yeah, there it is. Bleeding, ladies and gentlemen. On the downside, if we hit something with it, we will also build up our bleeding meter. If we let Priscilla kill us, she would make reference to Ariamis being the creator of this world, by the way. But now, we're actually already leaving. And now Ariamis will never be mentioned ever again. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will say goodbye for now, but I hope to see you again next time.